or younger, not newer, but rather, sorry, younger generations are definitely exploring these topics more. And so without all the stigma, you know, that there is to it. Sometimes if you go see a therapist or you go talk to somebody, there's always those stigmas of, oh, estás loco or something like that. Oh, we don't need therapy. So so I definitely appreciated that, you know, more and more people are willing to talk about it.
Thank you, Patricia, for sharing. And Sharon said she's having technical issues, that it keeps freezing. I'm just going to disclose really quickly that this is going to be a recorded session, just so we can put on our ELLAS website for any students in the future who might not have been able to make it today. They can go in there and watch, and we'll also put it on our YouTube channel in the future as well. So other people that are interested in this conversation, they can re-watch this virtual hangout talk. Cynthia Lopez, did you want to share anything? I know you mentioned on the chat that you did get a chance to listen to the podcast.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Lopez. I'm actually checking in from Chicago. I'm a therapist at a community mental health center. I actually was not aware that there was a podcast. I think I missed that, but I will definitely be listening in after this. I was just replying that I also had technical difficulties, but I'm on now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Cynthia, for introducing yourself and for joining us all the way from Chicago. I hope you're doing well and you're staying safe out there. I think one of the things that really was impressive for me to hear overall was the staggering number that, according to like the Mental Health America, over like 21% of American adults between the ages of 18 and 64 will have a diagnosed anxiety disorder in a given year. And I thought that number, representing 42.5 million people, was very, it was crazy for me to hear that, because, and a lot of the things that, hi, Jessica, thank you for joining us. A lot of the things that the podcast was covering that I felt like I related a lot to myself. For instance, the fact that we don't discuss when we're feeling these down because we don't want to be seen as weak, and we don't want to be seen as, oh, that's the person that's very fragile, anxious. Let's not talk about certain conversations around them. They can't handle it. And versus taking the other approach that maybe that person does need you to talk to them, listen to them, and seek that help. So a lot of the times we don't necessarily open up and talk to I know me personally, growing up, I felt that I'm first generation, parents immigrants, and I just felt like if I ever did feel some sort of anxiety because of certain situations that were occurring during my upbringing. I remember my college years, there was a lot of problems going on around in my household. My sister, one of my older sisters, due to some issues, was getting deported. She got deported during that time. And I remember me being so close to dropping out of college because I felt like I needed to financially support and be there more for my family. In that moment, I had all those symptoms where I was struggling to go to sleep. I constantly was just thinking about what can I do to make things better. But this was conversations that I was just having internally in my head, and I wasn't necessarily sharing with anybody because I didn't want anybody to see that I was being weak. And I felt really ashamed to even go to my mom or my dad during that time and tell them how I was actually feeling, when they're the parents and they have to go to work and they have all these other issues to deal with aside from their own daughter being deported during that time. And it was something that definitely affected me because I never sought help because, once again, going back to, I did not want to be seen as the weak one. And I wanted my parents to see that I was strong, I was put together, I was going to school, I was working, I was getting good grades. But at the same time, dealing with the situation at home, that one of my closest, my sister, my best friend, was going through the situation where she was being deported, and she eventually did. And to this day, right now, she's in Mexico. We do talk to each other, but I think it's one of those situations that culturally we experience that no other culture can identify with. And we still have all these other expectations that we need to meet, as being like the first in my family to graduate from a high school, to go to college, and not being able to, for the remaining of my years in college, really open up and talk to my parents about I wasn't able to sleep, I wasn't eating right. There was that stress of what I do. At some point, I picked up 2 part-time jobs. I was a full-time student, trying to do my homework between like my breaks at work or my breaks in school, going to sleep late, didn't have a car, so I was on public transportation. So it was all these factors that I was still trying to keep myself together, but I never went or sought help when that help was provided to me. I went to Cal State Long Beach. I was born and raised in Long Beach, and I'm sure that if I would have opened up to a teacher or to my counselor, they would have, the resources were there. But mentally, I just thought, you can do this, and you can definitely get through this, and you'll be strong. And if I could go back in time, I would have sought that help, and I would had less stress and anxiety during those years. But that's one of the things that I really related to as I was listening to the podcast on listening to ourselves, listening to our triggers, and culturally the shadow that this has over us. Not sure if anybody wants to share a little bit about how they've dealt with anxiety, or how anxiety is seen in your household because of your background. You feel free to open up the mic or send in the chat a quick little message. Or if you just want to unmute yourself to introduce yourself and say maybe a reason why you decided to join this conversation today. While we wait for Adriana to switch to her computers, and then we can ask her.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Hi, Adriana. I wasn't sure if you were still switching computers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the picture's better here. No, I'm
nice.
here. I'm so sorry.
No worries, Adriana. Thank you. Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about your background? I'm sure everybody knows you, but just for those, we do have some students on the line that this is their first time. Here.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. Before I do introduce myself, I wanted to just add a little bit about your intro, your statistic from the show notes. And, you know, the statistic is that 42.5 million people, right, are diagnosed in a year with anxiety. But only the people that actually go to see a doctor or a psychiatrist, or even tell somebody, you know, in the medical profession about it. There's still so many people, especially in the Latinx culture, that do not go and don't get diagnosed. So I just want that piece to be accounted for when we think about statistics, because the reality is that number is a lot higher than what's actually being reported, because of the stigma that we carry. And it's not just, you know, Latinx, it's a lot of other minority communities. So that's all I just want everyone to keep in mind when they see a statistic.
Right.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Adriana Alejandre. It's so nice to be here with everyone on this very sunny morning here in Los Angeles. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, but I don't see people in marriages, and I don't see family units. I specialize in individuals that have experienced a trauma or multiple traumas. So yeah, I see one-on-ones, and I used to see teens, but now more so my practice is more so adults, people that are coming to me. And I launched Latinx Therapy in 2018. It's a bilingual podcast and directory where the public can find a therapist. Because I realized that there was a big need for it. And I was frustrated with, when I would get a lot of calls, I have to give referrals if I'm full. And in me giving referrals, I was finding myself that there just weren't enough Latinx therapists around, or we just weren't in one place. So I was like, well, I'm going to just create it because I'm not waiting for any big company to create this. I need, the community needs this help and I need this help. So I started off with the Facebook group first, and then in 2017, and then took me a while to find someone to develop my website. And I started though right away with the podcast, interviewing other Latinx mental health professionals. And since then it's grown so much. And I'm also a mom. So I graduated from UC Santa Barbara. And then I graduated from Pepperdine with my master's, and my son turns 10 next week.
Nice. Well, congratulations to your son, and congratulations to you that you've been able to grow this space specifically for the Latin X community, and you're highlighting these other women in these spaces and bringing them forward in your podcast. And I really enjoyed listening to Anxiety 101. For those of you who haven't or listen to it, I really encourage you to do so. It's on the agenda of the event. But one thing that I do want to ask you, Adriana, is one of the things that I learned listening is the different type of anxieties there are out there, and the different symptoms that each one of them bring. Do you want to just briefly touch upon that?
Yeah, can I just ask if Yesenia Reta is on this call? She's actually the guest that was interviewed. Yesenia, are you here? I saw
she's here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Yesenia. She's here, but she's muted. So, there we go.
I'm here. Sorry, my kids are here, and it's kind of loud, so I was just
tuning in.
They're gonna open the door anytime right now, but I'm here.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and for doing the episode with me.
Yes,
thank you.
I loved it. Thank you. I learned so much. I was like, wait, what? I was like, I've had some of those symptoms before. I didn't even know during that time period in my life. So yeah, that was very interesting and informative.
Yeah, there was a lot of information, and Yesenia, I think, broke it down in a very simple way in the episode. Recorded in like 2018, so it's been a while, but anxiety hasn't changed since then. Nancy, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, no, I think one of the key learnings that I took away that I feel would be interesting to kind of bring to this group, maybe because not everybody listened to the podcast, was the different type of anxieties and the symptoms that there is.
Yeah. So the different type of anxieties. And then there's not a clinical side of things, and I'm going to speak in the non-clinical way, because I believe that absolutely everyone experiences anxiety to some degree, and there's healthy anxiety and unhealthy anxiety. The healthy anxiety is when we feel that like motivation to do something. It could be like, you get home after school, you eat, you have homework, but you watch TV first, even though you probably should be doing the homework or starting on the project, but whatever, you're watching TV, and then you get like I can't watch TV. I'm thinking about this too much. So you get up and you start, you end up doing the project or the assignment. That's healthy. Now, let's say that you do that, you get yourself up and you're doing the project, but along the way, you start getting frustrated. So it could start off as healthy anxiety, but then throughout the way, during the course of the assignment, it could get unhealthy. That's if you start like breaking pencils, or if you start getting so frustrated, you're like, hitting the laptop or throwing things, or, saying really negative things to yourself, like, oh, you're so dumb, like you should know this, or you should have started a lot earlier. You're just talking really mean to yourself in your mind. at that point, that then becomes more of the unhealthier. And it could even be unhealthy if you're, let's say someone walks into your room and you're like, get out, it's just very, very sudden anger.
Right.
And it just feels very heavy also inside you. For some people, it's a lot more quieter than healthy anxiety, where it just consumes you, meaning like it just takes over your body and you just maybe just start crying because you feel so defeated. Some people may even freeze and just not do the assignment at all. And that is also unhealthy anxiety, where you just self-sabotage. You don't do the assignment, you end up getting a fail or a really low point because you had too much anxiety to even with the assignment.
Right. Yeah, I think we can probably all identify, or by living or seeing it or living it ourselves. But I think another topic that you guys covered on the podcast was knowing like our triggers and learning from that. And I because and that when I heard that part, I kind of paused the podcast and I started thinking back, because I don't think I've ever been able to identify those moments. I know I just shared my story about what I went through during college, and I know definitely that situation was a trigger. But how do we know and identify those type of triggers that can lead to our anxiety and work to make those situations better for us?
Well, I think that by tuning into it's if you're doing the work for the first time, without professional help, it may be difficult, but it's not impossible. I want to say that much. Learning how you talk to yourself, when you talk to yourself, what you have to do on a day-to-day basis is important. You have to know what's on your plate and how you are with yourself in order for you to then become aware of the kind of anxiety and when anxiety comes out. So when we do become aware, when we're like, okay, I know I have too much on my plate, or I know that I lose my energy more so at night. I should be doing homework more so right after school. Or for some people, it is like right after school, they need a break and then they need to do their stuff right before bed. It depends. You have to learn when you have higher energy, higher capacity to learn and absorb information, or even just higher energy to socialize with other people. That can definitely help. So that's one key awareness. And then learning how your body reacts to anxiety. So anxiety can change, just like depression. It can change from situation to situation and from person to person. So the way that you're anxious around your mom may look different with how you're anxious around friends at school or in social settings. So learning the discomfort that anxiety brings within you will be helpful for you to then apply techniques. So let's say that when it comes to first days of school and meeting some new friends, even like, let's say I have the same clique of friends, but a new person came in to that circle and I just get really, really shy with that new person with my friends because I'm, too shy to interact with them, introduce myself, etc. I would probably want to pay attention. Okay, what is my stomach doing? What is my heart doing? How's my breathing? So those are the main factors that take over when it comes to anxiety, but there's so many more. If the tummy is doing some flips, butterflies, or if the heart is just like racing when it's your turn to speak, then okay, my body's like too intense right now. I need to breathe. Because most of the time what happens with anxiety is that we start getting tense and holding our breath. When we actually have to do the opposite to help ourselves. It's like release. Okay. And then start over and do your breathing. Breathing is helpful because it helps us to provide oxygen to the brain so we can think, so we can process. But if we're holding our breath and if we're tense, it's going to get harder and we're going to get flustered. We're going to get overwhelmed with all the thoughts kind of clashing into each other in our mind. So that's.
And I liked what you just said right now. The techniques, the simple techniques. I remember in college, I took a communication class, but that was because it was a class I needed to take in order to fulfill like my first initial electives. And I always had like stage fright and speaking in front of a crowd. So I remember I froze, and the teacher literally walked me out. And one of the things he told me is like, ball up your hands, put them and make them into little fists, and just put all your energy into that, and then just release and do it again and do it again. And then I did that a few times for a few minutes. Once I kind of cooled down, I went back, and it helped. It really did. I mean, I was still nervous, but it helped me just kind of calm down those nerves. And they're just little tips that I had no idea. I froze. I couldn't even get a word out. And I remember thinking like, why can't you speak, Nancy? Like my head was telling me what is going on, like why, but there was no words coming out. And I think my professor obviously knew what was going on, and he just grabbed me. He told everybody, you know, just give her a moment, walk me outside. And that was the first time I've ever heard of something like that, about doing that simple exercise. So I think it's interesting that you brought up that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of different exercises, and it's great that YouTube has a bunch of them for free too. So maybe if you're too shy to ask your parents to see a therapist, or if you don't want to go to a counselor's office just yet, which I do recommend because they should have some techniques, then go on YouTube and check it out, because there's a lot of different, just put relaxation techniques from therapy and see what shows up.
Yeah, one of the things that I started laughing when I heard the podcast Anxiety 101 was el nerviosismo in our culture, how it's kind of brushed under a rug. You know, ay, está nervioso, o déjala en paz. And I wanted to ask you, like, why do you think this is something that is just seen as like, oh, está nervioso, but instead of talking about it and sitting down, it's kind of like, oh, just don't bother them. Like, what effects is there in the long run?
Well, the reason I think that it's been that way is because our families, culture, generations from ago have been in survival skills mode. So they've just been surviving situations, and I don't think that they really learned about mental health because it wasn't a priority. Putting food on the table, probably fleeing from, or there's corrupt governments as well, like fleeing from them. That was more so priority for them. That's what made them nerviosos, but enough to just try to survive through finding resources, non-mental health related resources, right? But the long-term effects is that, yes, it gets passed down from generation to generation. Everybody on this call are the generations that are putting in so much work to reverse that. And I'm not putting blame on our ancestors by any means, because they had to survive. They are actually what got us here. They deserve some credit. They just didn't have the tools to discuss mental health, because it can't be a priority when your physical safety is in danger. So it's physical safety first, and then emotional safety can come next. And that's the same thing that we talk about in therapy too. So the effects are that it does get passed on. There has some research where it even gets passed on through some DNA. So even if you don't grow up seeing anxious behaviors, because maybe the adults around you did get therapy for that, it's possible that you just have it in your DNA. And it's maybe not to the same degree of anxiety, but it's some form of anxiety. I think also there's a cleaning episode that talks about cleaning as anxiety from our culture. And cleaning, like obsessive cleaning, as many of our families have, is also a form of that. So there's just so many effects. Like anxiety manifests itself in our lives in very sneaky, quiet ways that seems normal because we're so used to seeing it on a day-to-day basis.
Right. And I going back to the comment about them thinking, let's take care of our physical safety first versus mental, because it's that survival mode. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot right now. And I have a feeling that after this whole situation and current that we're living right now, and not even after, but right now, a lot of our community is going through that because they're either in the front lines and they're the ones that right now they're thinking, okay, I have to go because they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford to not go to work. And they're thinking that same way where, okay, let's go to work, make sure we're physically taking care of ourselves. But at the end of the day, they might feel exhausted. They might feel anxiety to go to work the next day because they're putting their physical health at risk. But it's that mentality that I need to get money and take care of my physical. And then right now, mentally, what I'm going through, I might not be able to sleep, but I'll figure that out later. Right now, it's not like the important thing, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And you bring up a great point too, that I think so many people on this call can relate to is that, you know, when we have tasks, things to do on a like on an hour by hour basis, such as school or even after school activities, our minds are occupied. We are occupied with the other tasks. But what I hear is that the time before going to sleep is the most difficult, and that's why a lot of people can't sleep sometimes. It's because you're alone with yourself. No one's giving you any more direction anymore. You're just there with your thoughts. So a lot of times in therapy, what we do is we work towards learning how to like yourself, how to have better esteem and have more positive interactions with your own self, so that you can enjoy that time before bed and help yourself, put yourself to sleep also.
Right. And going back to when you're in that alone time before going to sleep and you're going through all of these things in your head, what are like some tools and recommendations that you do give to these individuals? Because no matter what age and what you're going through right now, I feel like that's the moment where what you just mentioned, you're not doing anything. You're just trying to figure out that you need to go to sleep and you're starting to think. And in that moment, what can you do to help yourself and give yourself that mental awareness?
Yeah. So a lot of people may think that YouTube or, you know, Netflix or one of the streaming channels may be helpful, but that's still, you know, you getting stimulation from a third source, not from your own self, your own thoughts. So something that you can do is definitely revise your sleep hygiene. So just like how we have health hygiene, body hygiene, right, which is showering, deodorant, washing our face, taking makeup off, all that stuff, right? We also have sleep hygiene, which is the things that we do to take care of how we go to sleep, when we go to sleep, both of those. We have to, this is part of the retraining the brain process where we look at that routine so that we see, okay, well, what's happening on your bed, because we have to retrain your brain so that it sees your bed as Mimi's, like the the place where you go to bed, where you sleep, knock out, where you're tired. So if people are on their phones on their beds, that's often something we work towards. Okay, well, is there a chair in your room, or can you do this outside of your room so that your whole brain can just associate your space as just like sleeping, quiet time? Sometimes it's not possible. Your room is your only safe place, maybe. But okay, maybe can you be on your phone on another section in your room, not on your bed? Or be uncomfortable on your bed. So maybe on the corner of your bed, sitting up, being on your phone. And when you are ready to actually go to sleep, you put the phone away. You don't have it with you on the bed. You put it on the nightstand, on the floor, on a pillow, whatever it is. And then you try going to sleep without any screens. So that could be part of it. But along with that is also doing, if physically possible, and if you're not already doing this at school, you know, some physical activity, whether it's walking, but to get your body a little bit more tired, especially for those that have high energy levels, because some people have a little bit more energy to burn off than others. And then checking your diet, you know, in terms of just making sure that you're not going to sleep hungry. And doing something relaxing. So even if it's just 3 deep breaths, that stimulates, that gets your nervous system, the good nervous system, the one that says, it's okay, we can relax, activated. So deep breathing can activate that one. We have 2 nervous systems, one that says alert, danger, danger. And then one that says, no, relax, no more danger, we're good, it's safe. So
I feel like that phone tip that you give, the recommendation, it's really good. I know myself, I try to, a lot of my work is very digital and social. So it's such a bad habit. Yeah, and even the fact that I literally put my phone right next to me in the little night table, and if I wake up at 3 a.m. because for some reason my brain is still running and I wake up randomly, the first thing I do is reach over to grab my phone versus I don't know. It's just I do it without even thinking. And I've been telling myself, even putting the exercise of leaving it not so close to me physically where it forces me to get up, then I would think, yes, exactly. I would think twice about actually going to reach my phone at 3 a.m. because I wouldn't want to get out of the bed and I would just fall back to sleep. But I've been in situations where I can spend like 2 hours. Is there any apps that you recommend for people that they can use? I know, for instance, right now, one that I'm using is Headspace because they're offering like some free like meditation. Normally it's a paid service, but right now they're offering some free things. But I don't know if you have any insight to other apps and tools like that people can have on.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the chat box. So Insight Timer, I put that there because it has English and Spanish meditations for free. So I like that one. And then on my resources tab, I have a lot of other apps. So on that page, you're going to see different little boxes. Just select the apps and YouTube one, and you'll see all the recommended apps. Some of them are for journaling. Some of them are for, ¿cómo se dice? Yeah, like you mentioned, meditations. There's all sorts. Mood trackers are in there. So I have a lot of recommended ones. I'm not affiliated with any of them. Those are just the ones that some of my clients have mentioned and that I have noticed to be helpful. And I personally, so the one I use, I haven't been able to put it on there, but it's called Oak Meditation, OAC.
Okay.
Meditation. And I like it because it's at 10:30, and I don't know if you can change this, but at 10:30 every single day in the morning, it gives me like a fun fact about just relaxing type things like Buddhism or meditation.
Nice. So it sends you like a push alert?
Yeah, that. And it just takes me out of whatever anxious mode or mode I'm in, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice fact. Or it tells me like, relax your shoulders or stretch a little bit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's 10:30. And it's always a nice surprise. I get it every single day at 10:30 and it always surprises me.
Oh, nice. I'm going to check it out myself. If anybody, I know we're almost at time. We have 4 minutes. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask Adriana a question, if you're shy, maybe write it on the chat. I'm going to use this time quickly while you prep your question or your comment or your reaction to let you know that ELLAS is going to be giving a giveaway. So if you can write on the chat room here, quick key takeaway of this virtual hangout, then I'll randomly pick a name and then we'll ship it to you. Just a key takeaway of either something that you learned that you didn't know, something that you're going to start implementing and using yourself, any of these tools that Adriana shared with us. If you're thinking of downloading one of the apps, but I'll give it a few seconds for anybody who wants to unmute themselves and ask Adriana a question or just leave a comment or have a reaction to anything that was discussed today.
Can I add a stress ball to the giveaway?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, definitely. I have a little stress. I don't know where it's at right now, but it's a little like cauliflower.
Oh, that's so cute.
And it also reminds me that I need to eat more veggies. I'm not like a big veggie person, but I'm like stressing. I'm looking at it. Anybody has a question? Don't be shy.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, so I'm Vanessa. Both of my parents immigrated from Mexico, and mental health is not something we really talk about in my family, which is why I pursued social work as my career. And I'm wondering what kind of tips you have for approaching that topic, whether it's psychoeducation, because I don't want to come across as like condescending, or how to just break the stigma.
Yeah, that's a great one. One of my parents, my father was always more accepting than my mother. My mother, we're still working on it. But so I definitely understand that stigma. Um, I think you definitely have to know like which one of your parents is more open than the other. And you're probably going to have to do different things with each of them. But the way that I did it and that I've read about has been to disclose little by little. So if you're a social worker, what about talking about your trainings, you know, just what it is, what your field is about, and what it's not about? Because a lot of times the los trabajadores sociales are viewed very differently because of how they worked in the 80s and 90s, when some of our parents were having like us or our older siblings, right? And it was just kind of awful. So kind of debunking that and sharing with them what the field is kind of about. With my mom, I share, you know, just like, oh, you know, when I home, I'd say, oh, hi mom, I just came back from a trauma training. And if she was in a good mood, she'd ask, oh, what's that about? And I would tell her like 2 sentences, keeping it short, so that she could be curious. And sometimes just that would make her break down and say, I'm too scared, I'm too scared. And I wasn't even pushing her, that was just her own doing. So that's just awareness in itself. And so yeah, I think just sharing bits and pieces. And so if you're not a social worker, maybe sharing bits and pieces about therapy or just about feelings or just about the mental health field. So if you read a stat or if you hear, you know, based off of this call, you can maybe for others on the call, speak to their parents and just say like, I was on this call where they said that 42 million Americans or people living in the US have anxiety. You know, just throwing that out there, conversation starters. So something very light. That's like phase 1. There's like phase 2 and phase 3.
Thank you. That's very strategic, so I appreciate it.
No problem. Good luck.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, Vanessa, for that question. And we're going to wrap up this conversation with Adriana. Thank you so much, Adriana, for giving us your time and for joining us and just having you here and sharing all these great feedback and tools and advice for all of our, not only students, but all the adults here in this call as well that we all really need it right now. So thank you so much. And once again, if you guys want to write a key takeaway, we'll be raffling and giving one giveaway, not only through ELLAS, but we'll get a Latinx, also a little stress ball. So thank you so much, Adriana, for joining us.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you to everyone that was on this call. You all just seem so amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. I'm going to give you an applause, virtual applause.
I'll give it right back to everyone.
Bye, ladies.